the same. They're, oh, I don't know why is it saying that. It's not because they're the same, because they're unique. They're oddballs, exactly. If you think about it, because what does it mean oddballs? It's unpredictable. They're strange. You're not fully
Different from
understand
each
that.
other, yeah.
Different from each other, and that's what makes us interested as humans. That's why we have relationship with the people, and we know they're not mutually replaceable. It's right, and this is what we want in a way. That's why treating everybody as oddball, that's actually a very good idea. And when we start treating them, they become even more oddballs. Right?
Yes, but the government doesn't want that. The government doesn't want
again,
oddballs.
Right, and then the school hates oddballs. Yeah,
Yeah, of
conventional
course.
school
Yes,
hate.
it's cool.
Like, yeah, and it surprised me how, you know, even a little bit, a tiny little bit of unconventional will be picked out in school in every aspect.
I actually just this summer wrote an article. I need to send it to the journal about this system crusher. I call it system crusher because there is a very interesting movie, fictional movie, German movie that's called System Crusher about little girl. But I wrote about what I called happy system crusher, because in the movie and some other, usually in the movies, they portray system crusher as people who are
Big problems
happy.
and they very
Yeah,
sad.
yes, it's usually sad, unhappy, whatever. And actually, I describe situations when there is a happy situation, but they still system crusher because of their happiness, and they kind of and they crash system because they're happy, not because they have some problems. And it's interesting for me, and I consider conventional school, progressive school, and democratic schools, how they're dealing with that, with them, and how like what's patterns emerge from that. What's interesting is, and I make interviews in different schools with different educators. What I found in democratic schools, there is no patterns at all, because that's an odd place for the odd people. So they're for them they're kind of normal in that sense, if it's even possible to say that, because it treats them as unique people. Yes, there is a situation that this cannot work, and then they have divorce from that, which is okay as well. That's nothing it's not big deal. It can be divorced. But all others is trying to really suppress in different ways. And they use different strategies to do that, but it's mostly how to fit, you see? Because in democratic school, it's very difficult to fit to what? It's because people make their decisions. It's like if you have needs, announce them, and it then become negotiation of them and so on and so forth. It's not easy process, but it's legit in many ways. When it's become not legit, it's just like goodbye. Again, it's not just something that it just didn't work. It didn't work, okay, but it's not idea of fitting or not fitting.
Right. Right.
It's a little bit like with marriage, in a way, if you think about that. It's like when you start fitting to that, there is some problem in the marriage, probably. It's about fitting rather than negotiating that. You see,
Right.
it means that there is something rigid on another side, or some side is very rigid.
Yeah,
And
I had once a professor at the University of Belgrade. She taught actually English, even though it was like foreign language at the university level, but not in English department. And so she had this very interesting metaphor for life, like advice for life, for women especially. She said, you have to find a husband who is like bigger than you. Then you have a lot of room to grow. If you find a husband who is smaller than you, she meant psychologically, then you have to fit into his world, and that would be very painful.
I think either we knew the same person or we knew similar persons. I always admired my colleague who had a similar philosophy. Yeah.
Right.
I like more the other one, which is, in my view, more interesting. And I forgot how it's going along. So sorry for my retelling that, which is not as poetic as it was sound. It's basically the idea is that find people whom you can like despite what you hate in them or something like that.
That's a good, also a good thing.
Yeah.
That was my aunt. She said, when you are looking for
Could
a
be.
husband, always first think, can you, not what you like in that person, but can you live with this person's bad sides that you hate? Can you live with
Yeah, that's
fighting and
better.
what love? That's all fine. That will not be no problem. But find what the bad sides are, and is that person's bad side something that you can live with?
Mhm. Mhm. In my view, this is part of kind of democratic schools. Exactly, the people kind of see that they can live with the people, with the things that they don't like, and also kind of appreciate other things more than these things that they don't like, and but they can live with that, and that's kind of important. If they cannot live with that, they have to kind of move to another place.
Yeah.
But you see, when I was in Yugoslavia, I was a mathematician there.
Mhm.
And then I moved to Canada, and I did my doctoral degree in mathematics education. So then I ended up working at the university and teaching future students and working with teachers in school boards. For me, it was absolute surprise to what extent education is run. My metaphor is as an army. It is
Mhm.
absolutely, you look at the superintendent of the school board, whatever they say, it's an order. That order has to be literally followed
Mhm.
to the
Mhm.
very end. And there is so much confusion about what the order is, because everybody understands it differently. The order is not clear, so that people implement it differently, but they try to fit into that order. And I remember, for me, it was absolute surprise when I was studying at the University of Toronto for my PhD. For the first time, I heard that Socratic style of teaching is a wrong style of teaching. We don't you haven't heard that. It's absolutely wrong. We don't want Socratic style, because Socratic style was understood as, I'm telling you how to do that. There is no freedom. There is
Oh, okay.
I'm telling you the answers. So totally opposite of what, as you say, Eugene, what Socratic style is. So I was thinking, Socrates was famous for the best students he had. And only here in Canada, I learned that that is wrong and we shouldn't be doing that, although we didn't know what it is. So I just wonder, in that kind of educational system where messages are wrong, but they are followed to the dot, how can one break these boundaries, as Biesta was saying, education as an institution or as a tool for molding people into something.
I think Biesta's fight is still the fight between conventional education and progressive education. We are talking, Eugene and I, from another complete paradigm.
Yes.
That's democratic education. It's not on the same continuum because it's completely different premises. It's a different paradigm. It's just like heliocentric and geocentric. But progressive education and conventional education still are on the same paradigm. Only how you implement it and what latitudes and why you're letting subjectivity of children or students come into play in progressive education is for different reasons than in conventional education. But is this a top-down authoritarian whole structure, like in army, as you say, it's in both. Only in progressive it's hidden. It's like Rousseau who said, the trick is to make students believe they like what you actually want to teach them and think that that you like. So it's kind of disguised in different ways. And I think that's Biesta's still fight on that side between conventional and the progressive education.
Okay,
The
that's
only
very
reason you have
helpful.
to have like very clear instructions is in the authoritarian systems, because it matters that everything is on one line.
It's top down,
Yeah,
strictly top down.
strict, because you will be, everything depends on that, how you interpreted it, whether you interpreted the way how the author or the autocrat thought or not. Into a certain degree, that's true in also progressive education, because the end result should be that you agree, like Kant said, and become a rational person. In the meantime, you can debate, you can do always all kinds of things to get excited, but where you're coming at the end, you have to, so you don't have to have this very strict, but basically you do. It's like Kant lived under King Frederick II, and he used him like, you can debate, at the end you have to obey. That was Frederick II.
One
And
thing
that's
that
also my, well, I have a question for progressive education, is that like, or for democratic education, you know, even in democratic society, you have someone that can uses the system, that understands system better than others. And for the students too, what if, you know, I have a not so talkative students in a democratic school, and he can't express his willing in a debate, or, you know, in a discussion. Is there any way, anyone to protect his rights or his wishes or his interests?
That's a very interesting question. And we could only probably ask Jim that question. What if somebody...
well, you can ask Eugene, because I have this issue as well. So why only ask Jim?
Well,
I will tell you later that it's absolutely the student decides, not you, not me. Like, for example, some students want to participate, but they cannot, and they need help. In this case, like, you can try to help them. On other sense, students want to be peripheral, and they don't want to participate either now or at all, and that's fine as well. And some students don't want to be there, and that's fine as well. They can leave at any time, and that's in my view, that's answer to that. It's you see, back to Dragana, you thinks that pyramid is there, right? On the top is administration or state will be governments, right? And in my view, that pyramid should be upside down in a way, because I'm as a teacher, I'm serving my students, I'm at their service, I should be loyal to them. Now, administrator is serving me. He's like at the same level as janitor, because I don't have time to deal with many issues that, and I need help of administrators with many issues, like where is the money, provide many other things. I don't want to deal with that, but they need to serve me. When it's very interesting, when at our university, I try to disrupt this whole thing. When administrators tell, I have a vision, how you fit to my vision? I said, I don't interested in your vision. You know why? Because what we're doing at the university, which is three things. We have teaching, we have scholarship and service. Neither one of them mentions you as my administrator. You know, they don't mention you, which means you should ask me, how can I help you? And you're not doing that. You should ask me, you should ask any of these people that ask me. But I'm actually the same thing, I'm the service of the students. So I need to ask them, how can I help you? Sometimes they don't know how, but we need to figure out together. It's like the doctors. In what I like, how doctors are different in Soviet Union, versus in United States. I never forget, we had a friend when Soviet Union, a young woman from United States, and she was studying in Russian, and that's why she was in Soviet Union. And she traveled. We lived in Moscow, so she traveled to Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, and she came with completely agitated. We asked what's happened, and she said, I had a toothache, and I went to the Soviet dentist, and they pull out the tooth without me asking my permission. And we thought, like, what's her problem? Like, we asked her, do you think you know more about dentistry than there? And she said, no, I don't know much about that. So why you care about that? They know what's good for you. They make this decision and they carry it out. They didn't tell you anything about it. They just pull it out. That's fine. It took me a while to realize what was the problem, especially when I came to the United States. I understood fully that the doctors is not who making decision. You're as a patient making decision. They help you to make that decision. They inform you. They tell you about pros and cons and this and this and that. And sometimes it's so organizing. They say, you can do this, this, and this, and this. And you say, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. And say, well, this one has these pluses, this is like this. I actually learned a very tricky way. I asked him, a doctor or her, I asked, what would you recommend your mother? Because I try to get advice sometimes. But many doctors really
They don't want to say. They don't want to say.
they don't want, exactly.
But
I think it's correct. This is where we are in this, we should be in relationship the same with the student. We should really help them to make their informed decision when they need our help. I become teacher not when I assign to the class. I'm not a teacher. It's just institution that forces me to be there. I become only teacher when I become helpful and useful for some particular students. Then I become their teacher at the time when they need my help.
okay, so we are coming to the following question, and I don't think that Biesta talked about that at all.
Of course not.
And that is teacher education. How do you perceive teacher education program that will be supportive of that kind of direction for the education, a democratic education?
Well, go ahead, Anna.
My idea would be that teacher education program should provide the students opportunities to discuss exactly that, to experience all different possibilities and to see what's pluses and minuses so that they know when they are as a teacher in different situations, what are the possibilities from the student's point of view, and give them a possibility to decide. So they have to be first have to a way to experience it. If they constantly, exactly what I was talking about, democratic school, our journal, what we are doing, if the students are constantly living in an autocratic system, even as a future teachers, they have no idea what are other possibilities or how they would like it, why they would like it or not, and how other students think about that and what's good for what. So they should have a variety of educational approaches and discuss what it means for them or for the students, for them as students and for them as future teachers. And not be, today, most teacher education is this monistic kind of, like everybody goes through same thing, and they are being prepared to be technicians, really, to serve the institution, right, or the society, as Esther would say, by doing certain things that they were given tasks to do. They have less freedom than even in the 60s here. The teachers had more autonomy to make decisions. Today,
I
definitely
think the teachers having less autonomy than we used to with everything, and the certification of teachers and the qualification of all the teacher education program. So 5 years ago, Chinese teacher education program have a lot of freedom, but now there's this qualification system for the teacher education program. So every teacher education program have to report what kind of courses you give, or You know, all your curriculum needs to be submitted, and all the videos in all the video cameras in classrooms. This really just teachers have less freedom than before. I really do feel that even in the last 5 years, there's a lot of changes.
Yeah, a lot
So
of
in other words, we need the democratic university.
yes.
But
Which is, in my view, this is a university of students, which is actually, it's interesting. I studied a little bit history of universities in Europe. And the first universities, especially in the south of Europe, and there is a reason why it was south, not north. Well, first of all, the university appears early in the south, not in the north of the Europe. Specifically in Italy,
Bologna.
yeah, Italy, south of France, not north of the France, south of France. And they were a so-called university of students. On the north, most universities become university of masters, which is very interesting. I can tell you, which is not what right now. It's a very different idea, university of students and university of masters. And in between, like, for example, University of Prague was a mixture of University of Students and University of Masters, depending on the department, which is also interesting. And again, there is a reason why some departments were gravitating more to University of Students and some other to the University of Masters. We right now, if you continue this kind of conceptualization, we live in the time when the university of credits, you know, what Lay was talking about, credentialism, when it was credentialed. So what's the difference between University of Masters and University of Students? University of Students were, and again, it's very interesting, when it's emerged in 12th century, early 12th century in Bologna, what Anna is mentioned, which is funny because the University of Bologna now, if you know Bologna system, which is completely opposite to that, and it's about credits. It's a university of credits rather than university of students. So University of Students was like that. It's exactly, it's run by students. Students hired, they hired professors who will teach them according to the contract that they had with the students. The president of university was a student. It cannot be professor, can be president of university.
Yeah, they
And
needed
so,
somebody to teach them, so they hire somebody to teach them. That's it.
and they were taught on their conditions. By the way, in some conditions were, I've read a little bit contracts of them. It was very dictatorial. Like, for example, let me give just, you will appreciate that level of the control that the students had. Like, for example, there was in the contract with the professor, there was clause about how long should be honeymoon of the professor will be, how long it should be, because it will be taking time away from the teaching. So, so it was well defined how many days it can be, and it cannot be more. If it will be more, the professor will be fined. It gives a fine. So the masters, it's it's different thing. It's not opposite, but a different thing. In this case, a master is somebody who is master in the certain profession, attracts students. The students come to the master because they want to study from that particular master. So they're not hiring the master. The master brings them as more like apprentice systems. Like, for example, many artists were this kind of masters, but not only, it was scientists, lawyers, writers were that masters.
They had
that
their own
attract
schools,
students.
yes. And
Yeah,
so
they attract that. But again, it's interesting. Both of them basically were destroyed at the beginning of 19th century. 19th century really kills both University of Students and University of Masters. The longest University of Students were also Bologna, University of Bologna. It was started there and ended. It's ended by the Napoleon during the Napoleon invasion. They closed that university, and when they started it, it became, for a short time, it was University of Masters, and then it became University of Credit. So it's interesting how we might want to return back to the system that was the organization that was in the Middle Ages. And by the way, it's existed from 12th century until almost 19th century. You imagine how long time it was. So we have that, even what we think it always looked like that. It's a short historical time.
Yeah, our time is still very short historical time. And it's still changing very rapidly. So,
and hopefully we might do something. We will get away from that and return, kind of to some degree back, or maybe move to forward, but with something else.
well, the technology is really changing a lot of stuff. Not only the kinds of jobs, but now you can look up everything you see Dragan are constantly looking up. We are looking up everything you hear and says, I have a question. I want to find out that and that. So you don't need teachers to transmit any factual knowledge. You can find it. It's online. It's really accessible to many people. I cannot say all people because there's still so many places in the world where they don't have that ability. But that's changed. Another change, think about it now. I don't know, Dragan, if you and Lei, did you hear about this newest artificial intelligence chat GPT that writes papers, sometimes better than anybody else, they say.
No.
Well, it's not true.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah.
Some people are afraid that they are.
So have you used a Quillbot for revising paper? Because like if I write English, I use Quillbot website that can revise to English. It's so good, so effective. I think yeah.
We're using Grammarly.
Not just the grammar. So when the words like if you verb
No,
and noun,
it's called Grammarly. It's not.
But that's another one for the Quillbot.
Write it down on the chat how it's spelled so that we can see it. I tried this chat GPT to find out what to get for my older son's birthday, which is coming up. Gave me 10 very good suggestions.
Really?
With that.
Let me tell you what I did today. I tried to organize a discussion between Piaget and Vygotsky. I think that it's very bad. But
Really?
I can share it with you if you're interested. Do you want me to put that? It's much more. I tried to force it. It's not easy, but I managed to do that, to create a dialogue instead of, because it's usually use essayistic style.
Yeah.
And I tried to organize as a dialogue. It's took me a while, but it's possible. Let me share it with you, and you will see yourself how good it is or how bad it is. Because I sent to faculty, we're discussing right now exactly this issue, and I decided to try myself and send to. Okay, so yeah, that's
very interesting how that will change the education and the positions of everyone. Third, the COVID showed that people can do a lot of things online. I don't think it's the good way if it's the only that, for many different reasons, but it opens possibilities that you really reach people from around the world, which never before could. So you could take classes in Italy or in Japan or in China, Chinese students taking classes in Delaware University. No, it's possible, and that changes so many things that are still invisible to people who are even financing that. I think that's an incredible change, and how it will change all the schooling, universities, it will be, let's see. Okay.
You can spend time just reading. So I tried to use two bots. One didn't work today because it says to me that it's up to full capacity and it cannot work. But I used u.com.
U.com.
So again, don't ask me, because it took me some time to organize that dialogue in the format of dialogue rather than essay. So I tried to do that. It's not real dialogue because it's basically almost like a school. Piaget asked questions and Vygotsky replies, but it's not a dialogue really. It's kind of almost like quizzing.
Also, it's a
Initially,
very superficial and a very fuzzy level. It's not good, really.
yeah,
But
right.
you know what I'm thinking about? You're probably familiar with activity theory.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm thinking while we were discussing, how would activity theory look at the system, educational system such as democratic school? How would that be? How would that?
It cannot work. It doesn't work at all there because it's not a system, and
That's what
it's
I
not
thought.
so much activity,
Mhm.
and that's it resisting to that, and that's why I
But you
think.
see, if I may interrupt, Eugene, let's say, because I was listening what you were describing as democratic school, as student being at the center. So student is actually the one who is organizing the activity. Let's put it that way. So how would it work if the actor, the teacher and student reverse the roles? With
No, it will and will not. It depends. Like
Yeah,
almost,
one
Go
of the
ahead.
very big things about activity theory, Vygotsky's whole approach is based on very deeply on deficit model of education, that younger people are ignorant or immature, don't have will, and that this is what's in Biesta's article, that they have to grow into an adult person who is an ideal adult, let's even say male, educated, Western type of person. And so that his whole theory is through this zone of proximal development, where the older people help younger people kind of in the United States it's called scaffolding, but kind of like provide ways how you will climb that ladder, and that's the goal. Democratic school, first of all, is not based on that. It's based on the idea that every person is, and Eugene uses the word, and we were discussing a long time, so Dragana will understand, but Lay maybe not, ličnost. Ličnost is not just personality. It's the Menschlichkeit, or the humaneness of person, which is there from the beginning, and it's not something that develops. It's something that maybe can enriched, can be diversified, can be given a lot of experience, but it's not something that you first don't have and then you kind of like start to have. So, and it's also changes with the whole life in a certain way, but not in that hierarchical way. And democratic schools are based on something more than that, where everybody has the equal rights of participation in the way how they want to participate or not participate. So it doesn't have built-in deficit model. And that's why these two, this psychological approach is not really they would not understand the democratic school at all, because they wouldn't see that what's developing. They wouldn't see this end goal, that there are some ideals like Biesta does with this adult, to create an adult that's based on this deficit model. Democratic schools definitely based on strengths model. Every person has a strength, has a yearning, wants to learn something or enjoy certain activity, and that's their right.
So that is interesting, because we are mentioning Vygotsky and zone of proximal development, but how does that work with parenthood? Because what I'm seeing in recent years is that parents are afraid to parent their children. So what is parenting now in that model? Because you are saying adult is there to teach the child, to bring the child somewhere to adulthood. but without having models and without having some sort of parenting, whatever that means.
Very complex question.
Can I just answer to that question
Yes,
differently?
please.
Because we're discussing with my Chinese students all the time, and it's interesting. I was thinking about that. They kind of pushed me to think in different directions. What's missing there? It's the notion of childing. You know, we have that parenting, but we don't have childing. What does it mean childing? Childing is how children shape parents. And they have different strategies. They have this sometimes she recognize patterns when these patterns of parenting, there is patterns of childing. I definitely can give you examples when my son shaped me personally in certain ways. I can give you, it's just like, wow.
I experienced those too.
Yeah, but you know, in our society, we're not talking about that. In our kind of cultures. Why? Because children, it's look like everything comes from parents, and parents can mold in some certain ways. And the question is, how to mold is better? Which parenting style is better? And not see that it's that childing. And in this case, because become interesting question about children, or childing and parenting that negotiate with each other, and that's become a meta questions about how to do that, and what if they're not compatible with each other, and so on and so forth. That's become interesting questions. There was a very interesting TED show, and I forgot the name of that. I have that because I have that for my students. That basically she's a developmental psychologist and she's studying parenting, and she came to interesting conclusion that it almost doesn't matter what parenting style you're doing. You can both screw it up, and you can do excellent things, which means probably that she coming to that without naming that term childing. But besides childing and parenting, there are many other things that are going on. It's in the life, like events in the life that changing both parents and children in certain ways. And also there is openness, they authoring things. People are authors. They're authoring their lives, they're authoring their, let me give example, how school and everyday life deal with the children learning language, right? Or in the usually in environment, it doesn't matter in which cultures, the adults or everybody else, it doesn't matter adults or not adults, see children, even babies, as authors that have their desires, active desires. We not fully understand what they want, but they have, we expect that they want something. They perceive world in certain ways. We don't know which one because we're not sometimes sure. They have feelings, they have relations, they have emotions, and so on and so forth. And we treat them that. And that expressed in the language somehow. Sometimes it's not very clear for us that we're not clear that, but this is what the learning language for the authorship of this language. In the school, it's completely different. It's a language is seen as a tool to communicate. And what they communicate is not important. They're not authors there. They tool users. Their position is using appropriately the tool. They don't care about what they say. Nobody cares what they say because it's not important. What's important is how they say it. And it's almost going in opposite direction because it's when kids so-called learn a language naturally, which is of course not naturally, but culturally, it doesn't. The culture see them as a capable authors. Okay, and it's true, and that capability is somewhat limited, but it's always limited. Like what I'm talking to you, we're adults, but I may be not comprehensible for other people because they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Which is we know with adults it's a mutual problem, because it's not only a problem of me, it's a problem of breakdown of our kind of communication and relations. That's the problem, because it's also people active on the side of listening, the authors of their listening, and I'm author as talking. And this is that authorship, negotiate and communicate with each other, these two type of authorships. But we don't see that in school is completely like that. They become inept, like Anna was talking, this deficit model. While in everyday life, and in a way, democratic schools continue that everyday life. They just see people as authors.
I wonder, would democratic schools involve parents, and to what extent?
That's different.
The school, it's different, but the school that we know, I really like that. They put a firewall between parenting and the school. And the reason for that, because
That's interesting.
they respect parents, and they say, we're not, this is your realm, and we don't interfere. We don't teach you how to be good parents, because we don't know, and we're not about that. And on the other hand, we don't expect that you will interfere in our realm, and so we kind of respect each other's realms, and they can actually articulate why parents should not be part of that, of the school.
Well,
So that is Biesta's model of school as organization, isn't it?
No,
not
not because
really.
of school. No. It's not because of that. Because they see school as a place for practicing the world, and you
Practicing
cannot
life.
practicing life in scaled down society.
That's
And in the parenting and outside of school, you're not practicing, but you kind of parenting involved a lot of concerns, which has nothing to do with this project of practicing life. It's a lot of things. In a way, they're not care about education. Parents, they might engage part of this education, but it's not about that. They provide security. They provide community. In part of that, it's not about society, building society, it's a building community there, which is super important. It's not one better than another, but that's why both of them has to be. Providing care is not the same as having a place for education, nurturing for education. It doesn't mean school also provides care, but it's not a priority there. It sometimes can take priority because of urgency, but they know that it's very temporary, and that's not about, the whole thing is not about that. In a way,
Jim,
paternalism in parents may be fine, but paternalism in school is not, until it's extreme. There are some extremes would be fine as well, but that's not, because it's not about caring.
right. And in this democratic school that we are talking about, the students are considered free citizens of the small scaled down society in which they have equal rights. With your parents, you cannot have equal rights. Most of the time, parents have a top on you. And so in order to be really free citizens in school, they are protected from parenting in school. When they go home, they're there with their
So that's
parents.
different. Yes. So where is that school? Is it in Israel?
Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Pennsylvania is a state or commonwealth. The Jim always corrects me. And it's about 2 hours away from Philadelphia toward the west from us. And Philadelphia is on very edge toward the east or near New Jersey, and 2 hours away from Atlantic Ocean. So this is kind of like even more toward the west. Not too far, hour and a half or two, something like that.
Yeah, hour and a half. It depends on traffic, of course, but about hour and a half.
So what do you do with this school? Do you do some research in school or what?
It's not easy to do research there because they need to allow you to do research. You know, by the way, they even visiting that school is not easy because they have to have a whole meeting about you, whether or not to allow you to visit and who are you. With us now becomes much easier because we have a long-term relationship. Everybody, like not everybody. Yeah. Some kids don't know, still don't know.
Let me tell you, in Israel, I was visiting one of several of these democratic schools, but especially one took me almost a month and 10 days to organize to get into the school, because they could not, the leaders or founders of that school who talked to me on the second day when I came there, because I knew them, I got recommendation from this school, from the founder. And they said, we will have a meeting and the decision will be made. Then, because it was holidays in April, there a lot of Jewish holidays, they postponed the meeting for 2 weeks. And then after the holiday, which was another week, they had to postpone another. And so all until they had this meeting, then nobody could tell me, just come. But it was very impressive when I came there. And then I wanted to go back to interview some students, and they said it would be too hard to organize that. Why don't you just contact these students? And if they want to meet with you outside of school, it's on their prerogative, but don't do it in school.
Yeah, but we're going like on Friday, we're going, it's very interesting relationship. It's yes, on the bigger scale, it's research, I would say reflection and challenging, we constantly challenging each other. Like and also the experiencing right now turmoil with the staff. It's very interesting. And they see, they want us to come, and specifically me to come, because in a way, from that point of view, I'm helping them, especially new staff, to engage in the reflective discourse and to think about bigger issues, their everyday life kind of things. Most of the new teachers that, not new staff, they don't call it teachers. They don't like the notion of teachers. They call it staff. They actually former students of that particular school, but still it's a very different role. So what I'm planning to present, which is really, how to say that, it was an interesting response to that, because I'm interested in creating discussion, because I'm trying to make sense of that, of the interesting issue in democratic education. Because on one hand, democracy implies that you must subordinate yourself to the decisions that you don't like. Why? Because you lose them. You try to convince other people that about your solution, your values, and so on and so forth, but eventually you fail. And that's why you should subordinate. On another hand, everybody should have personal responsibility, regardless. They cannot use excuse that I follow the rules. And these two things going against each other, which is, it's a problem of civil disobedience. And I want to explore how much they engage in civil disobedience. Like I want to, by the way, I hope we will be able to meet with the children of students, or with parents, with the staff, and discuss this. I'm doing mini presentation problematizing, but I want to collect cases and problematize and bring this kind of, it will be interesting what will happen after that. I know that sometimes our discussion and challenges of each other was extremely fruitful on the long run. Sometimes it was like rejection first, but then with the time, like for example, one of the founder with whom we have very close connection for a long time now, more than 10 years, he called me at one point as benevolent dictator in my classes at university, what I'm trying to do, democratic education. And I was very, not upset, I would say I was surprised, and I'm trying to convince that I'm not. And it took me some time to figure out that he's right, and actually try to unpackage where exactly and how exactly I'm benevolent dictator for my students. And the biggest answer, of course, because I'm so-called giving them freedom. But, you know, if I can give freedom, I can take it back.
Away.
It cannot be ever given. It's only can be affirmed. But I'm really, because I'm working in the traditional institution, I'm using or abusing my power. Some people say I'm using power or using my power to give this freedom. let me just give one exclamation of one student in my class. She once exclaimed, Eugene, you just couldn't, you just need to realize that few months ago, I have to ask permission of the teacher to go to pee. And today I'm deciding what I want to study and how I want to study and all of this. It's just like, it's disorientation happens, but I'm involving them. It's not like I'm asking, do you want to be disoriented or not? I'm
throwing them into that situation.
as a benevolent dictator, and he was right. On another hand, we gave us very interesting. They have so many rules. Like they have the book like that, like 100 rules.
100 rules.
Yeah, that, and they continue increasing that. And when I was there, I asked children about by the way, one amazing thing, how thoughtful children are, even little ones, like 7 years old. They're giving us a tour, I remember.
Absolutely
to go.
incredible.
And it's always interesting to know how it's happened, like how they learning to be like that, or whether or not they were selected like that, but no, they're not selected. They actually learn rather quickly, things like that. But anyway, but one thing that I asked them about these rules, I opened that book that they had and asked, like, what's the reason for this book? Like, of this rule, I'm sorry. And they don't know. Because it's the rule was debated sometime before they came to the school. And they very eloquently, this is 7-year-old girls, we had this conversation. And they very eloquently explained me the difference between this school and other schools and how it's different from their parents. They told it, that parents constantly bossing us around, and in these schools we're making decisions ourselves. And I challenged them. I said, listen, you said parents are bossing you around. This book is bossing you. There are rules there, and you don't have any clue why there is these rules. And I brought that as a challenge to the school. What's interesting was happened that school moved to a new building.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, by the way, they still don't know, and it's interesting, they don't understand that this discussion that happened all the time put something in move, because they decided to throw away the book and start all over again. And not only that, but they start thinking maybe they should do it time to time, throw it away and start from the scratch. But all these discussions led to this kind of.
That's an interesting, yes, idea.
And that's very interesting.
Yes.
So Eugene said about how Jim pushed him to rethink his role. But Jim in the beginning was very much against the educational dialogue. He says, it's not my business to force some, ask some question, provoke children. If they are interested, they'll ask me, but dialogue is pushing on them. But he did rethink that. And he thinks now it has, for instance, this about the rule book or discussion of what are we doing here? Why? What does this mean? Do we agree with that? Is for democratic, not for learning, not for education, but just for their democratic life. Very important.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's very interesting. I kind of feel that it's right now it's even difficult to say, like, because in kind of peripheral way we are part of their school. And
Jim always used to say, on one shoulder sits Eugene, on the other shoulder Anna, and they are telling me things.
and vice versa. He kind of said, because I constantly said what Jim would say, like when I have some challenges or dilemmas, I sometimes like what Jim would say about that, how he would try to approach this. So it's very useful. I don't know how to call, because it's not collaboration. We're not collaborating, but
it's almost like having some self-correction tool all the time with you, some self-correction voice which tells you you did too much here, or maybe scale down and try something else.
When this special issue comes out, hopefully in 10 days, 7 to 10 days, I'll of course put it. I'll announce to everyone, and if you're interested, I'll also send you the link. Everything is
Yes,
free on
please.
our journal. You can just download things.
Yes.
There's nothing.
Yeah, and this interview, Anna did interview with Jim for this special issue.
Yeah, one of the article is the interview between Jim and me. Yeah.
Mhm. A very, very
So
interesting.
I did
interview.
interview with him and he with me. Part of it is I was asking him about various things in school, and then
Mhm.
part of it he was asking about what's dialogue and dialogic pedagogy. So it's kind of like both ways.
But you see, for example, this is just one idea that I came with now. How about for this book that I mentioned, and you said that you may be interested? How about you write about that school and how mathematics is taught in that school? Because that would be so interesting to see. Maybe do some sort of small case study, or maybe some vignettes with, or interview students. What do they think about mathematics and how do they learn mathematics? Because that would be really interesting. So just one idea. I don't want to put you there.
Let me tell you an interesting story. My graduate student did her dissertation at that school. I'm talking about Kathy, you know her. And she came to that school and they allow her to do her dissertation. And they start asking, what did you learn today? Or how did you learn this? Or how did you learn? And once, actually also 6 or 7 years old kids interrupted her and said, why are you asking these questions about learning? This school is not about learning.
Yeah, we are here about
And
living.
it's so interesting, like it's very profound thing. And by the way, when Jim late after that was writing a book about his school, it's recently, recently it's already, almost like 3 years, 2019, just before COVID started. And he actually, fortunately, addressed that issue, why democratic school is not about learning.
But
So you see, this kind of questions about how they learn math, it's...
No, that's an excellent question because we want to problematize the whole idea.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
okay, let me give you the book. I can
Yes.
send it to you through the chat, not just the name of the book, but the whole book. Just
Okay, excellent. So I see that we came to the end. What is the plan for next month? Because Anna said that you're meeting once a month for a book study. So what?
Oh, let's explain that we have.
Okay, Anna, while you're looking for the book, let me explain and you look for the book. Usually the way how we do that, first of all, you need to be part of the email system. And then Anna, at some point soon, will ask, first question will be, there is a list of the books or articles that people proposed before. So the question, do you want to add something to that? And the question will be to everybody, and there will be a deadline for that. You're welcome to add. It's not necessarily one, you can add whatever you want to add. The only criteria for that, but it's even, maybe I should not even say that, because the only criteria is that it should be available electronically, but that's another story.
Yes.
It's a technical story, yeah. Then after that, Anna will kind of finalize that list and send us a survey to about each item that is on the list.
Yes.
To select your first choice, second choice, and the third choice. And after that, there will be a winner, hopefully. And that's what we're going to discuss. So usually it's about 2-3 weeks before that. And I don't know, I'm trying to read all this just before our meeting, because it will be fresh, because I have like what they call mature memory. And so, but some people like to read like earlier, and it also makes sense. So that's how it works, Dragan. So in this case, right now, we don't know.
So Anna, you have my email. Do I need to do anything about it, or you will put me on the mailing list?
Okay, let me just, this is not working the way I want it to work. Just a moment. Yeah, I will. I can put you on the list, but I will also send you now a
Yes.
form where you can fill out that form, and it will
Sure.
populate various. It will do various things for us,
Yes, yes.
so that we don't have to do it manually. Okay, just a moment. Where am I?
I can do it, Anna, if you want me to do it. I'm almost there.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I said that and immediately lost. Where is? Ah, it's right here.
Elaine, nice meeting you. I hope we will
Nice
be
to
So
meet
just
you.
moment.
Yes.
soon.
This is the 19. Oh, it's in the cloud. I have to first download it.
Anna, don't do that. I can do it.
Okay, then let me just send before you go, Dragana, this form that you can. Okay, this is the best from here that you can fill out.
Sure. Let me see.
And okay, so if I want to do this, it's EduBookClub and.
Lay, this is the problem. I don't know why Anna's, there is something wrong with Anna's settings. That Anna, you don't allow today any, at least me and Lay, to use camera. The only reason how it's possible for me that Anna makes me host. Maybe you can make
I don't know
Lay
what's the
host.
problem. Something they updated and maybe changed my settings. I have to go and see the settings.
Yeah, can you make Lay host right now?
Okay, let me make you a host for a second, Lay, and you can then turn on your camera.
I didn't realize that. That's why Lay cannot. You
Oh,
cannot see.
now you're the host, so I don't have that. You have to make her host. I lost my privileges.
Okay. I'm making you host. Now I'm the boss.
Right.
How to do that? This is how to make it.
Mhm.
So, Lay, you will be. What about co-host? Okay.
You can do co-host, yes.
Lay, now you should be. Yes.
Oh.
I just saw it for a second. Yeah.
There you are. Hi, Lay. Lay was in University of Delaware for a long time, and we became very good friends. Oh, we don't hear you. You muted.
You're muted. Now you can control.
Unmute.
Oh, yeah. Hi. I was Eugene's graduate student. I did my PhD at the University of Delaware.
And Dragana, I didn't know you, Dragana, in Belgrade. She just somehow found me. She works in Canada, but is also from Yugoslavia and from my city and from the same university there.
Dana, if you
Nice to meet you.
let me remind you, you were the first school friend of my husband, Nebojša Ralević.
Wow, I didn't connect at all.
I
That you had-
remember we were visiting you in
Yeah, oh, I
Philadelphia.
completely did not
Doesn't
remember.
matter. It was a long time ago. It was just brief visit, but I remember.
Well, you
Wow.
remember because through him, and it was a
That's
long
that's how we met, and I learned about you, and then I followed your work, and now because of this book, I just remember you, and it
very
was.
interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
I'm so glad that we.
Nebojša, your late husband was the best friend of my best friend from
Wow.
childhood. So we
Yes.
knew each
Small
other.
world. What?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Okay, so nice meeting you all. And
Nice meeting you,
we'll keep
Dragana.
in
And
touch.
yeah, see you in months about.
And
about-
Dragana, here is the link in the chat that you
I
can
took
enroll
everything.
yourself. And I'll
Yes.
send you it privately then.